If you're a parent with a young child, you've probably felt the pressure. Pressure? Plan a good primary school for your kid. The pressure to make the right move to get your kid into a good primary school. And I get it. A lot of us want to give our kids the best. For many of us, that comes from a very personal space. For some of us, maybe we didn't get the best opportunities growing up. We couldn't get into a very good primary school. So now that we have the chance, we want to give them that opportunity. But once you start planning for primary school, especially around property decisions, that's where the confusion starts. You ask yourself, what's the best timeline? Should I be moving within 1 km of the school? Should I do it now? Should I act fast so as not to lose more opportunities? You begin house hunting around the dream school area. However, if you look at the options, sometimes they are old. They're very small projects. They're expensive. They have poor layouts. Sometimes, a lot of times, these are more difficult to sell in the future when you want to exit. So everyone tells you, buy within 1 km and you'll get priority. So how do you weigh? So this becomes really a very painful decision. Do I buy a house that doesn't really suit my family, my needs, or my wants just to get into the school? Or should I buy smarter and risk losing that spot in that school? So a lot of times you're caught between your child's future and your financial goals. So let's break down the rules. To qualify for this admission, essentially first, you need to stay within 1 km of the school. Second, you need to stay for 30 months. 30 months, how do you actually go and count? Essentially, it's about 6 months before the school starts, another about 24 months once primary 1 starts. So total of about 30 months, you have to stay in that location. So essentially, you're committing to this house for at least 30 months. And with SSD in today's market at 4 years, you will likely keep the house for about 4 years. So the problem comes in when, what happens if I buy the house, I stay in it, I apply for the school and it's an oversubscribed school, and my child doesn't get it. I've seen parents buy a 30-year-old walk-up apartment, not liking the layout, not liking the reno, spending a ton on reno, not liking the house for the next 3 to 5 years, and after that, when they want to exit, they barely made much as well. So that's a scary place to be. So if this is starting to be a bit overwhelming, drop me a comment or DM me and I'll actually walk you through this journey. I've helped many parents go through this journey, and all it takes is just one simple and clear plan. So one of the couples I recently worked with, we came up with a plan. So instead of buying an old house or a house within 1 km, which they didn't like, so we went house hunting with them. They saw many houses, they didn't like it. What happened? They actually rented a place. They rented a place within 1 km of the school, and then they purchased another property elsewhere that they were a lot more confident in terms of making money, in terms of the exit strategy, and in terms of their entire portfolio when they want to grow and elevate the asset. Their capital at that time was about 1 mil. So their projected growth in about 5 to 8 years went up to about 1.9 to about 2 mil, which gave them a potential of about 900 to 1 mil worth of gains, all while still being within 1 click of the school that they want and buying a property that could make them money. That's a potential of 900,000 to 1 mil in terms of gains, all the while giving their kid a shot at the school and not being stuck in a property that they don't want. So if you're curious to find out how this strategy actually might help you and your family, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to show you what's possible in terms of your school zone, your timeline, and your goals. Here's what a lot of younger parents are doing now, something that some of the older generations didn't do at the time. They're renting near the school and they're buying smart somewhere else. So the reason we need to ask ourselves is why? First, it gives us mobility. If your child doesn't get into the school, you're not stuck. Second, it gives us flexibility. If in the event you don't get into the school, you can change your house after that. You don't have to wait for 4 years for your SSD to finish. You just need to wait for the rental tenancy agreement to finish. And third, there's actually less risk because you don't have to commit to an overpriced house or an underwhelming house that you don't even like. So now you have to ask yourself, what if I buy a house near a school and my child doesn't get in? Then you're stuck with a house that you never really wanted in the first place. But with renting, you just don't renew the lease and you can start somewhere else. So the rental strategy, how do you actually plan it right? So when it comes to renting, essentially it's a choice about lifestyle. If today you're going to tell me, hey, Linden, my lifestyle is this. I need to stay in District 9 or 10. I need a 4-bedroom, at least 1,005 square feet. Your rental essentially goes up to about 8,000 to 9,000 per month. However, if you're okay with, let's say, maybe a slightly newer OCR 3-bedroom property, your rental can go to maybe about 4,000 to 6,000 a month. So before we even begin, I help my clients with a few things. First off, understand what they're actually comfortable with. Secondly, balance between space, convenience, and budget. And third, set a rental range that's actually sustainable. Does it make sense in the next 3 years, 4 years when your condo is being built up? Do you have enough reserve funds to actually sustain this kind of lifestyle? Does it make sense? So to me, the easiest way to think about this, the lower your rental is, the easier to plan your next step. So this is where the planning kicks in a bit more. So essentially what I'm going to be using is I'm going to be using the Pro Map in our PropNext app. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to search all the condo rentals within 1 km of Resale School. So I'm going to search 3 and 4 bedrooms, asking price up to about 5,500. So what you'll notice is that we have 7 projects and we have 40 listings. So to me, if we have 40 listings here, there is enough supply here to actually go and look at for my clients to consider. So what I also always share with my clients is that yes, we can look at condos. Can we also look at HDBs? So if we're going to do a similar search, but for the HDBs within 1 km of Resale, up to 5,500, there's another 54 listings. So all in all, you go and count 40 listings plus 54, we got 94 listings available currently that might be suitable for the client. So what I always share with the client is that, okay, if you have 94 listings, cannot be we see 94 and you don't like anything, right? There's no such thing as a perfect house. So very important, when we go and see 94 listings, typically we're not going to see 94, we're going to see, let's say we see half of them, 40, 50 units. There's a very high chance you will like at least one of them. So the thing about it is that if there are so many listings in the market, I'm very confident that we are able to find something suitable for my clients in the next 3 to 6 months. However, the problem comes into play when there are certain criteria or certain areas that they're looking at and we only find maybe 1 or 2 listings or don't have at all. So then that rings a bell. I'll share my clients, okay, we look at this. We look at this certain criteria that you're looking at in terms of your house. There's so few units. If there's so few units, maybe we might have to tweak the plan here and there. We might have to change it a bit, okay? So I always prepare. Plan A. What's the kind of unit that you're looking for? Plan B, nearby units. Are there nearby units? Plan C, are there alternative condos besides the one that we're actually looking at? So as long as we have backup plans all around, to me, that always mitigates the risk. To me, that makes it safe for my clients. The question now everyone should be asking should be, Linden, if I'm going to rent another 2, 3, 4 years for the condo to be built up, aren't I just throwing money away? Every single month I need to pay rental, I'm throwing money away. So how can I still make money from my newer property or from another kind of property? So this is one of the most common concerns I get when I plan for parents wanting to rent near good schools. So here's what I did. I ran the numbers side by side. If let's say today you're going to buy a resale, what's your cost involved plus your capital appreciation? Does it make sense? Versus if you're going to buy, let's say, a new launch, you're going to rent for a few years plus your capital appreciation, what's the figures like and does it make sense? Which option actually makes sense? So this is another example that I did up for my clients. So essentially, let's say you're deciding between 2 things. 1, buying a resale property near the school right now. 2nd, you're renting near the school and buying a better long-term asset elsewhere. For example, a new launch. So a lot of times when you're buying these completed properties, there are a lot of sunk costs. You'll be paying interest, you'll be paying maintenance fee, you'll be paying property tax. On top of that, some of these properties do not appreciate as well. So with renting, your only cost essentially is mostly just the rental. Not much interest because you're paying progressive payments. In terms of property tax, you're not paying it because you haven't collected key. In terms of maintenance, you're not paying it because you haven't collected keys. Okay, so what we're going to look at is this. If let's say today we're going to buy a resale property at 2.5 mil versus if you're going to buy a BUC, which is a new launch, at 2.5 mil as well. Okay, essentially this is your bank loan. Let's just assume that it's going to be 75%. Your projected growth over the next 4 years, let's assume that your new launch is at 5% versus your resale, which is at 3%. So your resale, we are assuming that is at a slower growth. Your estimated gross profits for your BUC, your new launch, is at 538,766. Your resale is at 313,772. So new launch makes more in this sense. Now we look at your expenses. If you're buying a BUC, you need to rent for about 3 to 4 years. Let's just assume maximum 4 years. Your rental at 5,005, you multiply by 12 months, you multiply by 4 years, you get 264,000. Your bank interest rates, this is just an estimate, about 81,000 plus. Now, that's essentially, you add that total, your total expenses, 345,000 plus. Now, if you buy a resale property, your bank interest, 134,000. Your maintenance fee, let's assume it's 350 per month. Your maintenance fee comes up to about 16,800 for 4 years. Your estimated property tax, 18,000 plus for 4 years. Let's assume that you're buying a resale property and it's a bit old. You need to do renovation. Let's just assume it's going to be at 50,000 renovation. Your furniture and fittings, another about 10,000. That comes up to about 220,000. So your projected property valuation after 4 years from 2.5 initially goes up to this amount, 3.038766, versus a resale at 3% growth goes up to 2.813772. Now your net profit, okay? Essentially, how do you go and count your net profit? You take your valuation. So next off will be your net profit. So how do you go and count your net profit? Essentially, your gross profit minus expenses. You're talking about 193,000. For the BUC, you take your estimated gross profit from your resale, you less off from your expenses, 83K. $429. So your ROE, return on equity, will be 26% for the BUC, 10% for the resale. So this is how we actually go and count what kind of returns are we looking at. Does it make sense? Of course, this is just one example of how we plan for our clients. However, you also have to understand certain properties that they buy, they don't have to wait 4 years. Some of them they buy at maybe 1 year into the launch. So they only have to wait maybe about 2 to 3 years to collect key. So recently my client bought a property that has some certain discounts as well, but yet next year they can collect key. So in terms of the rental wise for them, essentially I only had to count 1 year rental for them. So really this depends on what kind of properties there are in the market, what kind of properties might make more sense for your portfolio. So that's where I come in to actually share with you for your portfolio, for your risk appetite, for your budget, in terms of your age, what's your tenure, how long can you take a loan for, what your family needs and wants. These are the properties that I might want to shortlist for you. So every client to me, my plans will be very, very different for them. So to me, always, yes, rental is a cost. However, so is buying the wrong property. Because at the end of the day, you do not want to lose money. Second, you don't really want your property price to be stagnant as well. So when you compare it side by side and factor in potential appreciation, what you also want to consider is renting essentially buy through time, clarity, and profit. So I know some of you are still wondering, what if my numbers are actually different from this? So let me know in the comments below. If not, just DM me and I will get back to you and we can look at your specific figures together. So the rental strategy isn't really about giving up on buying. In fact, it gives you the freedom to buy better. Why do I say so? Because with this plan, you can invest into a high potential new launch. You can start capital growth when your kid starts school. And third, you avoid rushed emotional decisions based solely on the school itself. So you're not choosing school or profit. Essentially, what I'm sharing with my clients is you're planning for both. How can we achieve getting into the school that you want them to get into and still achieve your long-term goals in terms of your capital appreciation? So here's the real school zone hack that parents are implementing in today's market. Rent for short-term success, buy for long-term goals. Plan ahead with data, backup plans, and flexibility. Honestly, this isn't about being clever. This is about strategically planning and making the decision in a very calm manner in a very high-stress situation. So if you're a parent in this exact situation, you're not alone. I plan with parents in this exact situation every single week. So this is how we do it, with a plan, not panic. Help me to like this video so that more parents like you can actually see it as well. And if you're planning for a primary school or even just maybe a move in terms of your property, just drop me a DM and I'll get back to you. I'd love to explore more. I'll share with you what kind of options might be available for you and what makes the most sense for you as well. Also, remember to subscribe. I share strategies like this every week to help parents and homeowners make better decisions in their property journey. See you soon!